Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UES Defiant, watching the stars drift by through the main window. His ship was not the biggest or strongest in the human fleet, but it was home to him and his crew of 43 people. They had been traveling through space for 6 months now, mapping new planets and looking for places where humans could build new homes. "Captain," called out his first officer, Lieutenant Tom Reed. "We are getting close to the meeting point. The elders should be waiting for us." Jake nodded. The elders were old beings who had been traveling the galaxy for thousands of years. They were wise and peaceful, and they had helped humans learn how to travel between the stars. Today they wanted to meet with Jake's crew about something important, but they had not said what it was about. "Slow down the engines," Jake ordered. "Let's see what they want to tell us." The Defiant moved slowly toward a large space station that looked like it was made of crystal and light. It was beautiful the way all elder buildings were. The elders had technology that humans still did not understand, even after working with them for 50 years. Dr. Anna Cross, the ship's science officer, looked up from her computer. "Captain, I am reading some strange energy patterns from the elder station. It looks like they are worried about something." Before Jake could answer, a voice came through the ship's communication system. It was deep and calm, the way elder voices always sounded. "Human vessel Defiant. This is Prime Counselor, Veth. Please come aboard our station immediately. We have urgent news that cannot wait." Jake had met Veth before. The elder leader was tall and thin, with silver skin that seemed to glow in the light. His people had no hair, and their eyes were much larger than human eyes. They were strange to look at, but they had always been kind to humans. "Tom, you and Anna come with me," Jake said. "The rest of you stay on the ship and keep watch." The 3 humans put on their spacesuits and took a small shuttle over to the elder station. When they arrived, Veth was waiting for them with 2 other elders. The Prime Counselor looked more worried than Jake had ever seen him. "Captain Morrison," Veth said, his voice heavy with concern. "Thank you for coming so quickly. We have discovered something terrible. There's a great danger coming to our galaxy." "What kind of danger?" Jake asked. Veth led them through the crystal halls of the station to a large room filled with glowing screens and strange machines. On the biggest screen, Jake could see a map of their part of the galaxy. At the edge of the map, there were dark spots that seemed to be moving. "They are called the Void Hunters," Veth explained. "They are machines, but they think and plan like living beings. Long ago, before your people even knew about fire, we fought a great war against them. We thought we had destroyed them all, but we were wrong." Anna stared at the screen. "How do you know they are coming back?" "Our deep space sensors have detected their ships," another elder said. "They are moving toward the center of the galaxy, destroying everything in their path. They do not want to rule or take things, they want to kill all living beings." Jake felt cold fear in his stomach. "How long do we have?" "Perhaps 6 months before they reach the first human colonies," Veth said. "Maybe less." Tom stepped forward. "What do these ships look like? How strong are they?" Veth touched a control and the screen changed. Now it showed huge black ships that looked like they were made of metal and shadow. They were bigger than anything Jake had ever seen, even bigger than the largest human cities. "Each ship can destroy a planet," Veth said quietly. "And they have thousands of ships." Suddenly, alarms began to sound throughout the elder station. Red lights flashed, and Jake could hear elder voices speaking quickly in their own language. "What is happening?" Jake asked. Veth's large eyes grew even wider with fear. "They are here. The Void Hunters have found us." Through the station's windows, Jake could see dark shapes appearing in space. The black ships were enormous, and they moved without making any sound. They looked like hungry sharks swimming through dark water. "We must leave now," Veth said, running toward the exit. "The station cannot fight them." Jake and his people followed the elders through the crystal halls. Behind them, they could hear terrible sounds as the Void Hunter ships began their attack. The beautiful elder station shook and cracked as energy beams hit it. They reached the shuttle just as part of the station exploded in bright flames. Jake started the engines and flew as fast as he could back to the Defiant. "Get us out of here now," Jake shouted as soon as he was back on his ship's bridge. The Defiant turned and began to run, But Jake could not stop himself from looking back. The Elder Station was breaking apart, its crystal walls melting like ice in fire. The Void Hunter ships moved through the wreckage like they were looking for something. "Captain," Dr. Cross said, her voice shaking. "I am reading the energy output of those ships. One of them has more power than our entire home fleet." Tom looked at the screen that showed the enemy ships. "How are we supposed to fight things like that?" Jake did not have an answer. He watched as the black ships finished destroying the Elder Station and then disappeared into hyperspace, probably going to attack somewhere else. Prime Counselor Veth, who had escaped with them, stood quietly in the corner of the bridge. His silver skin had turned darker, and Jake could see that the Elder was very afraid. "Counselor," Jake said gently, "what can you tell us about fighting these things?" Veth looked at him with his large, sad eyes. "Captain Morrison, my people have fought wars for millions of years. We have technology that your species is only beginning to understand. But against the Void Hunters, we lost. They are not just machines. They learn from every battle. They adapt. They become stronger." "Then how do we stop them?" Anna asked. "I do not know," Veth said quietly. "But perhaps humans can find a way that we could not. Your people are young and think differently than we do. Maybe that will be enough." As the Defiant flew through hyperspace toward human territory, Jake stared out at the stars and wondered if Veth was right. Could humans really fight an enemy that had defeated the ancient and powerful elders? Behind them, the empty space where the Elder Station had been was now filled only with floating pieces of crystal and metal. The Void Hunters had left nothing alive. The emergency meeting room on Earth Station 1 was crowded with worried faces. Admiral Lisa Kane sat at the head of the long table, looking at reports from across human space. The news was getting worse every hour. 3 more colonies have gone silent, reported Commander Bethhart, her voice tight with fear. That makes 7 in the past week. Whatever these Void Hunters are doing, they are moving fast. Captain Jake Morrison stood near the big screen that showed a map of human territory. Red dots marked the places where colonies had stopped sending messages. The pattern was clear. The enemy was coming straight toward Earth. "Tell them what you saw, Captain," Admiral Kane said. Jake looked around the room at the faces of generals, admirals and colony leaders. Some of them he knew, others were strangers. But they were all looking at him with the same question in their eyes. "How bad is it?" "The Elder Station was completely destroyed in less than 10 minutes, Jake said slowly. "These black ships are bigger than anything we have ever built. Prime Counselor Veth told me that one enemy ship has more power than our entire home fleet." A colony leader named Robert Mills stood up. He was a big man with gray hair who had helped build the farming colonies on the outer worlds. "Then we should run," he said loudly. "We should take our people and go to the far colonies, as far away from these things as possible. And leave the galaxy to die?" asked General Marcus Webb. He was an old soldier who had fought in the border wars 20 years ago. "The elders helped us reach the stars. Without them, we would still be stuck on Earth. We owe them our help. We owe our children a future," Mills shot back. "What good will it do if we all die fighting something we cannot beat?" Dr. Anna Cross, who had come with Jake from the Defiant, stepped forward. She had been working without sleep for 3 days, studying the data they had collected from the Void Hunter attack. "I have been looking at the energy readings from the enemy ships," she said. "They are powerful, yes, but they are not magic. They follow the laws of physics just like everything else. That means they can be damaged. That means they can be destroyed." "Admiral." Kane leaned forward. "What did you find, Doctor?" Anna turned on a small computer and showed them pictures on the main screen. "The black ships use a kind of energy field to protect themselves. But when they fire their weapons, the field has to open small holes to let the energy beams through. For just a few seconds, they are not completely protected." General Webb nodded. "So we need to hit them at exactly the right moment." "It would be very difficult," Anna said. "We would need perfect timing and a lot of luck, but it might be possible." Prime Counselor Veth had been sitting quietly in the corner. Now he stood up, his tall, thin body moving slowly like he was very old and tired. "There is something else you should know," he said in his deep, calm voice. The Void Hunters are not just machines. They share one mind, one consciousness. When one ship learns something, all ships learn it. They become smarter and stronger after every battle. Then how did you fight them before? Jake asked. Veth's large eyes looked sad. We had help from other races. Many different peoples worked together. But even then, we barely won. Most of our allies died in that war. We thought it was worth the cost because we believed the Void Hunters were gone forever. The room was quiet for a long moment. Everyone was thinking about what Veth had said. Finally, Admiral Kane spoke. How many ships do we have that can fight? About 400 warships, answered Commander Hart. Plus maybe 2,000 cargo ships that we could convert to carry weapons. It is not much. The Void Hunters have thousands of ships, Jake said quietly, each one stronger than anything we have. Mills stood up again. You see? This is exactly what I am talking about. We cannot win this fight. We should take our people and run while we still can. But General Webb was shaking his head. Running will not work. These things want to kill all living beings, remember? They will keep chasing us until they find us. The only way to save our people is to stop them here. A young officer named Lieutenant Dan Fox raised his hand. What about the other races in the galaxy? The traders, the builders, the cloud people? Will they help us fight? Veth looked even sadder. Most of them are already running away. The traders have taken their ships to the far edge of the galaxy. The builders are hiding in their deep space stations. Only a few races are still willing to fight. Admiral Kane stood up and walked to the big window that looked out at Earth. The blue and green planet looked peaceful from here, but Jake knew that millions of people down there were scared and waiting to hear what would happen. I have made my decision, Kane said, turning back to face the room. Humanity will fight. We will not run away and let these things destroy everything we care about. Mills slammed his hand on the table. That is not your choice to make alone. What about the colonies? What about the families who will die? They will die anyway if we run, Kane said firmly. At least this way they will die fighting for something important. General Webb smiled for the first time in days. What are your orders, Admiral? Kane looked around the room at all the worried faces. We gather every ship we can find. We call back every soldier on leave. We turn our mining colonies into weapons factories and our cargo ships into warships. We prepare for the biggest fight in human history. Dr. Cross raised her hand. I will need more scientists to study the Void Hunter technology. If we are going to fight them, we need to understand how their ships work. You will have whatever you need, Kane promised. Jake stepped forward. Admiral, let me take the Defiant out to rally the outer colonies. There are ships and people out there who do not know what is happening yet. Good idea, Captain. Take Prime. Counselor Veth with you. The colonies need to hear from both humans and elders that we are working together. As the meeting ended, people began to leave to start their preparations. Jake found himself standing next to General Webb. Do you really think we can win? Jake asked quietly. Webb was quiet for a moment, looking out at the stars. I do not know, son, but I know one thing. Humans have a way of surprising people. We are young and stupid and stubborn. Sometimes that is exactly what you need to beat an enemy that thinks it knows everything. Outside the station, transport ships were already moving, carrying the news to every human world. The message was simple. The galaxy was under attack and humanity would not run away. The war was about to begin and 2 months after the emergency meeting, human space looked completely different. On every world, people worked day and night to prepare for war. The mining colony on Titan had become a giant weapons factory. Children who had never seen a gun were now learning how to shoot. Old cargo ships were being covered with metal plates and fitted with missile launchers. Colonel Tom Reed stood on the surface of New Haven, watching thousands of elder refugees set up their temporary homes. The planet had been a quiet farming world just weeks ago. Now it was one of the most important military bases in human space. How many more are coming? Asked Private Lisa Brown, a young soldier who had volunteered to help with the refugees. About 10,000 more elder survivors are on their way. Tom said, looking at his report tablet. They lost almost everything when the Void Hunters attacked their worlds. Tom watched as human soldiers helped elder families carry their few belongings to the refugee camps. The tall, silver-skinned beings looked lost and scared. These were people who had lived for thousands of years, who had built amazing cities among the stars. Now they had nothing but the clothes on their backs. An elder child, no bigger than a human 10-year-old, tugged on Tom's uniform. The child's large eyes were filled with tears. "Will the bad ships come here too?" the child asked in broken human language. Tom knelt down so he was at the same height as the child. "We are going to stop them before they get here," he said gently. "I promise." The child nodded and ran back to his family. Tom hoped he could keep that promise. Meanwhile, in orbit above Earth, Commander Beth Hart was working with a team of engineers on something that had never been tried before. They were taking apart Void Hunter technology that Dr. Anna Cross had managed to collect from the destroyed Elder Station. "Be very careful with that piece," Anna warned, as the engineers moved a strange black metal fragment. "We still do not understand how it works." Beth looked at the twisted metal through the protective glass. It did not look like much, but this small piece had come from a ship that could destroy planets. "Have you learned anything useful?" Beth asked. Anna rubbed her tired eyes. She had been working for 16 hours straight. "The metal is not like anything we have ever seen. It seems to repair itself when it gets damaged. But there is something interesting. It gets weaker when it is far away from other Void Hunter ships." "What do you mean?" "The enemy ships make each other stronger when they are together," Anna explained. "But if we could separate them, if we could get them to fight alone, they might be more vulnerable." Beth nodded. This was important information. "I will tell Admiral Kane right away." On the other side of human space, Captain Jake Morrison and the Defiant were visiting the outer colonies, trying to convince people to join the fight. It was not easy work. "You want me to send my ships to fight those things?" asked Captain Roy. Kim, the leader of the merchant fleet at Frontier Station. "My ships are not warships. They carry food and medicine, not missiles." Jake understood Roy's fear. The merchant ships were not built for fighting, but they needed every ship they could get. "We can add weapons to your ships," Jake said. "And you know these trade routes better than anyone. We need ships that can move fast and strike where the enemy does not expect it." Roy looked out the window at his fleet of cargo ships. They were old and slow, but they had carried supplies to human colonies for 30 years. "What about my crews?" Roy asked. "These are not soldiers. They are engineers and cargo handlers." "We will train them," Jake promised. "General Webb has set up training camps on 12 different worlds. Your people can learn to fight." Beside, Jake Prime Counselor Veth spoke up. "Captain Kim, I have lived for over 2,000 years. I have seen many wars and many brave people, but I have never seen anyone prepare for battle the way humans do. You do not just fight with weapons. You fight with your hearts." Roy was quiet for a long time. Finally, he sighed. "How many ships do you need?" "All of them," Jake said honestly. "Then you have them. But I want my people to get the best training you can give them." Jake shook Roy's hand. "You have my word." Back on Earth, Admiral Kane was in the war room, looking at reports from across human space. The news was both good and bad. "The good news is that we now have over 3,000 ships," reported General Webb. "Not all of them are real warships, but they can all fight." "And the bad news?" Kane asked. "The Void Hunters are moving faster than we expected. They will reach the Kepler system in less than 3 weeks. That is where we have to make our first real stand." Kane looked at the star map. The Kepler system had 5 planets and about 2 million human colonists. It was also the gateway to the inner colonies. If the Void Hunters got past Kepler, they would have a clear path to Earth. "How many enemy ships are we looking at?" Kane asked. "Our scouts report at least 50 of the big black ships, plus hundreds of smaller ones," Webb said grimly. Dr. Cross entered the room, looking excited despite her tiredness. "Admiral, I think I have found something important." She turned on the main screen and showed them a recording from one of the scout ships. "Watch what happens when the Void Hunter ships attack a planet," she said. On the screen, they could see the black ships firing their terrible energy beams at a world. The planet's surface burned and cracked, but something else was happening too. "Look at the ships," Anna said, pointing at the screen. "See how they position themselves? They form a perfect pattern, like they are following a plan that was made long ago." "So?" Webb asked. "So they are predictable," Anna said with a smile. "They always attack the same way. They always move in the same patterns. We can use that against them." Kane leaned forward. "What are you thinking, Doctor?" "The Void Hunters are machines, even if they can think. They follow programs. But humans do not follow programs. We can be random, chaotic, unpredictable. We can do things that make no sense to a machine mind." General Webb grinned. "Like what?" "Like ramming our ships into theirs. Like attacking when we should be running away. Like fighting even when we know we cannot win." Anna's eyes were bright with excitement. "The Void Hunters have fought the Elders, who are logical and careful. They have never fought humans who are crazy enough to try anything." Kane stood up and walked to the window. Outside, she could see transport ships carrying supplies to the fleet. Workers were loading missiles and fuel. Families were saying goodbye to sons and daughters who might never come home. "Send the order," Kane said quietly. "All ships are to gather at Kepler. We make our stand there." "And if we lose?" Webb asked. Kane turned back to face the room. "Then we make sure we hurt them, so badly that the next human fleet has a better chance." As the orders went out across human space, thousands of ships began to move toward the Kepler system. Cargo ships with missile launchers welded to their hulls flew beside real warships. Civilian volunteers worked next to trained soldiers. Refugees worked beside human engineers. The largest fleet in human history was gathering for the most important battle they had ever fought. No one knew if they would win, but everyone knew they had to try. In the darkness between the stars, the Void Hunter ships continued their advance, their black hulls reflecting no light. They had destroyed civilizations for millions of years. They had never lost a war. The space around Kepler Station was filled with ships like never before in human history. Admiral Kane stood on the bridge of her flagship, the UES Thunderbolt, watching the massive fleet take their positions. 3,000 human ships spread out in a defensive line, ready to face the approaching darkness. "Final count, Admiral," reported Commander Hart. 250 real warships, 800 converted cargo vessels, and the rest are support ships with whatever weapons we could find. Kane nodded. It was not nearly enough, but it was everything humanity had. Captain Jake Morrison's voice came over the communication system from the Defiant. "Admiral, our forward scouts report enemy contact in 30 minutes. 57 of the big black ships plus over 300 smaller ones." Kane felt her stomach tighten. They were outnumbered, outgunned, and facing an enemy that had never lost a war. But she also felt something else. Pride. Every ship in her fleet was here by choice. No one had been forced to fight. "All ships, this is Admiral Kane," she said, into her microphone. "Today we make history. Today we show the galaxy that humans do not run from a fight. Remember what Dr. Cross taught us. Hit them when their shields are down. Be unpredictable. And whatever happens, do not give up." On the planet below, Colonel Tom Reed was preparing the ground defenses. 2 million colonists had refused to evacuate, choosing instead to help defend their home. Men and women who had been farmers and shopkeepers just months ago were now carrying weapons and manning defense stations. "Sir, we have movement in space," reported Sergeant Mike Davis, looking through his telescope. "I can see flashes of light." Tom looked up at the sky. Even in daylight, he could see the bright explosions as the two fleets met. The battle for Kepler had begun. In space, the Void Hunter ships appeared like a dark wave rolling toward the human fleet. They moved in perfect formation, just as Dr. Anna Cross had predicted. Their black holes seemed to absorb all light, making them look like holes in space itself. "All ships, execute Plan Chaos," Kane ordered. Instead of meeting the enemy in neat battle lines like a traditional space battle, the human fleet scattered in all directions. Cargo ships loaded with missiles flew straight at the enemy's flanks. Fast scout ships darted between the big black ships, firing at anything they could hit. The converted mining ships, tough as rocks, rammed themselves into enemy vessels. The Void Hunters had never seen anything like it. Their perfect formations began to break apart as they tried to target the wildly moving human ships. "It's working!" shouted Commander Hart. "Look at them! They don't know which ships to shoot at first." Dr. Cross, working at a science station on the bridge, was tracking the enemy's energy patterns. "Wait for it! Wait for it! Now! The big ship on the left is opening its shield to fire." A group of human fighters dove toward the exposed Void Hunter ship, their missiles striking the weak point in its armor. For the first time in the war, a big black ship exploded in a ball of fire. Cheers went up across the human fleet, but Kane knew they could not celebrate yet. The enemy was adapting, learning from this first defeat. Captain Roy Kim, leading his converted merchant ships, found himself face to face with 3 Void Hunter vessels. His old cargo ship was no match for their weapons, but Roy had an idea. "All cargo ships follow me," he said over the radio. "We're going to try something stupid." Roy's ship and 20 others flew straight toward the enemy ships, not firing a single shot. The Void Hunters, confused by this strange tactic, hesitated for just a moment. In that moment, Roy's ships released their cargo, thousands of metal containers that scattered like a cloud in front of the enemy vessels. When the Void Hunters tried to move forward, they collided with the floating debris, damaging their perfect hull surfaces. "Now!" Roy shouted, and hidden behind the cargo containers, a squadron of human fighters attacked the confused enemy ships. But the battle was far from over. The Void Hunters were learning fast, adapting their tactics to match the chaotic human style. Their smaller ships began to spread out, copying the human strategy. On the Defiant, Jake watched as one of the enemy's big ships turned toward his position. Its weapons were charging, ready to destroy his ship with a single shot. "Captain, we can't outrun that thing," said Tom Reed, who had been promoted and was now serving as Jake's first officer. Jake looked at his crew. They were all young, all scared, but none of them were giving up. "Then we don't run," he said. "All power to forward shields. We're going in." The Defiant flew straight toward the massive enemy ship, dodging energy beams that could have vaporized them instantly. Jake waited until they were almost touching the black hull, then fired every weapon they had at point-blank range. The explosion damaged both ships, but the Defiant survived while the Void Hunter vessel began to break apart. Prime, Counselor Veth, who was on the bridge with Jake, looked amazed. "In 2,000 years, I have never seen anyone attack like that. You flew into certain death and somehow lived." "That's what humans do," Jake said, breathing hard. "We're too stupid to know when we're supposed to die." But the tide of battle was turning against them. For every Void Hunter ship they destroyed, they lost 5 human vessels. Admiral Kane watched her fleet being slowly torn apart. "Admiral," Dr. Cross called out urgently, "I'm detecting something strange. The enemy ships are all connected to each other somehow, sharing information instantly. But I think I've found their weak spot." "What is it?" "They have a command ship, bigger than the others, staying far back from the battle. If we could destroy it, the other ships might be confused long enough for us to escape." Kane looked at the battle display. The command ship was surrounded by dozens of defenders, far behind enemy lines. It would be a suicide mission. "I'll take a strike team." Jake's voice came over the radio. He had been listening to their conversation. "Captain, that's suicide," Kane said. "Maybe. But if we don't try, we're all dead anyway." Kane looked around her bridge at the determined faces of her crew. They had come so far, fought so hard. She made her decision. "Do it, Captain. Take whoever volunteers. We'll cover your approach." Jake gathered 12 of the fastest ships, including several piloted by elder survivors who wanted revenge for their destroyed worlds. As they began their desperate flight toward the enemy command ship, the rest of the human fleet launched one final, massive attack to draw attention away from the strike team. The battle for Kepler had become a race against time. Could Jake's small force reach the command ship before the main fleet was completely destroyed? In the darkness of space, Captain Jake Morrison flew the Defiant through a storm of enemy fire, leading his small strike team toward the massive Void Hunter command ship. Behind him, 11 other ships followed, their pilots knowing this was likely their last mission. "Stay close to me," Jake said over the radio. "When we get near that command ship, we only get one chance." Beside him on the bridge, Prime Counselor Veth was working frantically with Dr. Anna Cross's virus program. The computer virus was designed to attack the Void Hunter's shared mind, but it had to be uploaded directly into their command center. "How much longer do you need?" Jake asked as enemy energy beams flashed past their ship. "2 more minutes," Veth replied, his silver fingers moving quickly over the alien controls. "The virus is almost ready." Behind them, the main human fleet was fighting desperately to keep the enemy busy. Admiral Kane watched as ship after ship was destroyed, but her remaining vessels kept fighting. They had to give Jake enough time. "Admiral, we've lost half our ships," Commander Hart reported, her voice heavy with sadness. Kane clenched her fists. So many good people were dying. "Tell all ships to keep fighting. Every second we buy might save the galaxy." On the planet below, Colonel. Tom Reed and his volunteers were also under attack. Void Hunter landing ships had broken through the space battle and were now trying to destroy the ground defenses. "They're coming from the east," shouted Sergeant Davis as black enemy ships landed near the city. Tom and his people fought with everything they had. Farmers used hunting rifles against alien machines. Children too young to fight helped reload weapons and carry supplies. Elder refugees worked alongside humans using their knowledge of Void Hunter technology to find weak spots. "Sir, we can't hold them much longer," a young soldier reported. Tom looked at the scared faces around him. These were not professional soldiers, just ordinary people defending their homes. "Then we make every shot count," he said, "for our families, for our future." In space, Jake's strike team was getting closer to the command ship, but they were taking heavy losses. 3 ships had already been destroyed and the others were badly damaged. "Defiant, this is the Eagle," came a voice over the radio. It was Captain Roy Kim, leading the converted merchant ships. "We're coming to help you." "Roy, stay back," Jake ordered. "Your ships can't handle this kind of firepower." "Maybe not, but we can't let you go in alone." Before Jake could argue, Roy's cargo ships appeared, flying between the strike team and the enemy defenders. The old merchant vessels took hit after hit, their improvised armor barely holding together. "Go!" Roy shouted as his ship exploded around him. "We'll cover you!" Jake felt tears in his eyes, but he could not stop now. The Defiant and 4 surviving ships pushed through the enemy line toward the massive command vessel. The Void Hunter command ship was 3 times bigger than anything Jake had ever seen. Its black surface was covered with strange symbols that seemed to move and change. This was the brain of the enemy fleet, the center of their shared consciousness. "I'm detecting thousands of Void Hunter minds inside that ship," Veth said, his large eyes wide with amazement and fear. "They are all connected, all thinking as one." "Not for much longer," Jake said grimly. "Prepare for ramming speed." "Captain, wait," Veth said suddenly. "I need to go with the virus. The upload must be done manually, and only I understand the Elder technology well enough to make it work." Jake looked at his old friend. Veth had been with them since the beginning, had helped them understand the enemy. "Veth, if you go over there—" "I know," the Elder said calmly. "But this is the only way. My people died because we could not stop these machines. Now I can finish what we started long ago." Jake nodded slowly. There was no other choice. The Defiant flew toward the command ship's docking bay, followed by 2 other human vessels. Enemy defenders tried to stop them, but the small ships were too fast and too determined. They crashed through the energy barrier protecting the docking bay and landed hard inside the alien ship. Jake, Veth, and a team of volunteers ran through corridors filled with strange machines and blinking lights. "This way," Veth said, leading them deeper into the ship. "The central processor should be at the core." They fought their way past mechanical defenders, losing people with every step. Finally, they reached a huge chamber filled with glowing screens and pulsing energy cables. At the center was a massive computer that seemed to be alive. "This is it," Veth said, pulling out the virus device. The heart of their network. But as he approached the computer, alarms began to sound throughout the ship. The Void Hunters had realized what they were trying to do. "Hurry!" Jake shouted, firing his weapon at the mechanical guards that were pouring into the chamber. Veth reached the computer and began connecting the virus device. But just as he was about to complete the upload, an energy beam struck him in the back. The elder fell to the ground, badly hurt. "Veth!" Jake ran to his friend's side. "The upload," Veth whispered, blood flowing from his mouth. "You must finish it." Jake looked at the complex alien controls. He did not understand elder technology, but he had watched Veth work. With shaking hands, he pressed the final sequence of buttons. The virus uploaded into the Void Hunter network. For a moment, nothing happened. Then suddenly, the lights in the chamber began to flicker. The mechanical guards stopped moving. Throughout the ship, systems began to fail. "It's working," Jake breathed. The virus spread through the enemy network like a disease, attacking the shared consciousness that connected all Void Hunter ships. Across the galaxy, black ships suddenly stopped in the middle of battles, their crews confused and unable to work together. In the space around Kepler, Admiral Kane watched in amazement as the enemy fleet began to break apart. Ships collided with each other as their coordination failed. Others simply stopped moving, floating helplessly in space. "All ships, attack now," Kane ordered. While they're confused, the surviving human vessels launched everything they had at the disabled enemy ships. Without their shared mind to guide them, the Void Hunters could not adapt fast enough to defend themselves. One by one, the black ships were destroyed. Jake carried Veth's body back to the Defiant as the command ship exploded around them. The Elder had given his life to save the galaxy, just as so many humans had died in this terrible war. The victory at Kepler was complete, but the cost had been enormous. Half the human fleet was gone. Entire colonies had been destroyed. Families across human space mourned their dead, but they had won. The Void Hunters were defeated, their remaining ships fleeing back to the dark space beyond the galaxy's edge. 1 year later, Admiral Kane stood in a memorial garden on Earth, reading the names carved into a great wall of stone. Captain Roy Kim was there, along with thousands of others who had died to save their people. "Admiral," said a young voice behind her. Kane turned to see a small girl with her mother. The child was holding a flower. "My daddy's name is on the wall," the girl said. "Mommy says he helped save everyone." Kane knelt down to the child's level. "Yes, he did. Your daddy was a hero." The girl placed her flower at the base of the memorial wall, next to thousands of others. Above them, construction ships were building new space stations. The galaxy was healing, and humans and elders were working together to make sure the Void Hunters could never return. In schools across human space, children learned about the war and the people who had fought in it. They learned that sometimes, ordinary people must do extraordinary things. They learned that courage is not the absence of fear, but fighting despite fear. And they learned that when the galaxy needed heroes, humanity had answered the call. The war was over,